15 Black R&B female singers who were the worst sex addicts. Astonished, heartbroken, and deeply empathetic, these are my feelings after researching over 100 Black celebrities and their tragic psychological struggles. Specifically, the dependency on physical intimacy that silently devastated the lives of renowned R&B beauties. It severely impacted their mental health, their peak careers, and fractured their most sacred family bonds. The truth might leave you stunned. This video is perfect to play while resting, enjoying a family meal, or doing housework. All information has been carefully researched from multiple sources. If there are any short, Whitney Houston, with a voice hailed as a national treasure, was always framed by Hollywood and the media in the image of a pure, devout, and flawless golden girl. However, behind that angelic exterior was a woman fiercely torn by suppressed natural desires. Stories of a deep relationship beyond mere friendship with her assistant Robin Crawford, or brief secretive romances with younger dancers, were often labeled by the press of that era as a fall from grace. But is the truth really that simple? From a psychological perspective, the behaviors labeled as a dependency on intimacy were actually the cries for help of a deeply lonely soul at the pinnacle of fame. When the entire world demands that you be a saint, your body will yearn to touch the most earthly things just to feel that you are still alive. I believe that Whitney Houston's tragedy is the tragedy of double standards. Society loved her soaring voice, but cruelly stripped away her right to be loved the way she wanted. In those quiet hotel rooms, secret romances were not a deterioration, but the only place she could remove the mask of a superstar to be a vulnerable woman needing to be caressed and sheltered. For audiences who have experienced many ups and downs, we view Whitney not with judgmental eyes, but with ultimate sorrow. In her diaries, she once admitted to being trapped between virtue and desire. Whitney's story teaches us a profound lesson. Never force someone to live the life of an emotionless monument. Her greatness does not lie in flawless perfection, but in the very scratches, the authentic yearnings, and the hidden wildness behind the voice that moved the world. Whitney Houston will forever remain a melancholic hymn about the exorbitant price of fake perfection. Tina Turner, the queen of rock and roll, was the embodiment of primal strength, fiery dance steps, and a magically raspy voice. However, her passionate romantic life, after escaping a deeply tormenting marriage, was often misunderstood by many as promiscuity or physical dependency. Anecdotes about her disappearing for days with a young dancer or a swift romance with a white actor who had to run away because the heat was too intense actually carry a much deeper meaning than trivial rumors. To understand Tina Turner's wildness, we must look back at her past. For many years of her youth, Tina's body and mind were severely mistreated, controlled, and treated as property belonging to Ike Turner. Therefore, I assert that her romantic explosion after her divorce was not an illness, but a personal revolution. When a woman breaks her shackles, the desire to be loved, to experience, and to take ownership of her own body burns more fiercely than ever. She wasn't charming men to fill a void. She was celebrating her own freedom. Her message, "I don't apologize for being a woman," was the most steely declaration of self-determination. For our older audience, the image of a Tina Turner who dared to love passionately, who dared to leave her partners breathless with her energy, is a symbol of true feminine power. Her story teaches us that no one has the right to put moral labels on how a woman enjoys her life, especially when she has had to walk through the very depths of hell to reclaim her right to be human. Tina Turner turned her bruised scars into a flame of passion, burning down all conservative prejudices and affirming a truth. Love and the physical body are gifts of creation, and women have the right to enjoy them in the most proud and brilliant way possible. If Tina Turner publicly burned down prejudices with her wild nature, the next figure hid her romantic flame behind a majestic altar. Would you believe that an exemplary queen, worshipped by the whole world, used the recording studio itself as a place of secret sublimation? Please stay with us because the truth coming right up will leave you astonished. Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin was worshipped by the whole world as the boundless queen of soul, someone who blended the resonance of the gospel church into popular music. She appeared with a majestic, poised, and highly powerful image. However, few know that behind that solemnity was a woman possessing incredibly strong gender instincts. Her becoming a mother at the age of 14, or the anecdotes about secret late-night recording sessions with male musicians, where music and intimate moments blended into one, were often avoided by the public at the time for fear of tarnishing the image of a monument. Through the lens of cultural analysis, the harsh judgment toward Aretha Franklin reflects the hypocrisy of society at that time. Why could male black artists have dozens of lovers and be considered romantic legends, while a powerful female artist doing the same was deemed problematic? I believe Aretha Franklin did not hide her instincts. She simply chose to live fully with them according to her own rules. Her requesting to sing love songs with a slow, sensual rhythm like a wonderful night of passion shows she understood very well the boundary between the holiness of the soul and the very human demands of the body. She used her power not only to elevate her music, but also to satisfy her deepest yearnings. For mature audiences, Aretha Franklin's story brings a highly realistic and human perspective. She was not an asexual saint lying on an altar. She was a flesh and blood woman who knew how to love, how to hurt, how to yearn, and how to master the game. The life of the Queen of Soul reminds us that true greatness does not require us to deny our instincts. People can sing hymns, praising God in the morning, yet still have the right to enjoy the sweetness of romance at night. That is not corruption. That is the completeness of a brilliant human life. Donna Summer? Mentioning Donna Summer, people immediately think of the Queen of Disco and the globally earth-shaking hit, Love to Love You Baby. That was not just a song, it was a 17-minute recording containing sighs, breathless moments, and the most unfiltered elevation of sensuality. Immediately, she was labeled by conservative classes as a propagator of depraved culture, banned from the airwaves in many states, and judged as a promiscuous woman. Her free-spirited, spontaneous romances with fashion designers or same-sex friends only fueled the prejudice that she was someone uncontrollably addicted to romance. However, analyzing deeper, we see Donna Summer as one of the greatest pioneers of the women's liberation movement. In a society where a woman's pleasure was always considered taboo, Donna Summer's presence was a direct strike against the hypocrisy of Puritanism. I assess that her sighs in the dark recording studio that day were not vulgarity, but a breakthrough. She dared to use her own body and voice to speak for millions of women who were forced into silence in the bedroom. The heavy criticism she faced only proved one thing: society always fears women who dare to take ownership of their own pleasure. Looking back at Donna Summer's legacy, middle-aged audiences will surely recognize the injustice she had to bear. She wrote in her diary, "If I could live again, I would still love exactly the same way." That is a highly proud affirmation from someone who never bowed her head to public scrutiny. Donna Summer's story leaves us a valuable lesson. Never feel ashamed of natural human needs. Intimacy, when expressed through the lens of true art, is an honoring of humanity's most primal beauty. Donna Summer turned taboo into art, and her musical notes will forever be the melody of freedom. Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan, the immortal symbol of funk music, never tried to become an elegant lady according to Hollywood standards. She was present, like a volcano, waiting to erupt, wild, voluminous hair, fiery eyes, and a voice that could pierce through any space. When she bluntly stated, "Physical intimacy is not just pleasure, it is what makes me sing," the media used that as an excuse to label her an artist overly driven by desire. Passionate nights of romance with musicians, or how she used physical connection to seek material for her hits, were often dissected as proof of a fallen lifestyle. But from the perspective of those who appreciate true art, Chaka Khan's lifestyle was the pinnacle of the union between life energy and creative energy. I believe that true art cannot sprout from dry and bound souls. Chaka Khan was not addicted to intimacy. She yearned for it as a fuel to ignite the artistic fire inside her. Her resistance to the television network's pressure to become obedient is proof of a resilient bravery. She would rather be denied airtime than wear a cloak of moral hypocrisy. Turning romance into music, as she did in Through the Fire, is a highly sacred process of elevation, not vulgarity. For audiences who have tasted enough of life's spices, Chaka Khan's bluntness brings ultimate refreshment. "They wanted me to be a lady, but I was born to be a monster." This quote is an epic anthem for those who dare to live true to their ego. Her story reminds us that we do not live to satisfy the standards of others. Wildness, if guided by love and art, will create indelible masterpieces. Chaka Khan proved that a woman who dares to love, who dares to burn brightly for her instincts, will forever be an immortal source of inspiration for free souls. Chaka Khan used music to reclaim physical freedom, but the flame of rebellion did not stop there. Figure number 6, coming right up, is a woman who dared to expose hypocrisy with the most unfiltered roars, making the entire male world of that time fearful. Do not leave the screen, because the real cultural shock has only just begun. Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle often appears in the minds of audiences with the image of a respectable mother, a woman carrying an aristocratic demeanor, along with a voice capable of awakening every soul. However, behind that exemplary exterior was a goddess of fire with passionate romantic desires. Anecdotes about her spending the night with young dancers, or her strict demands for both physical and spiritual harmony in the bedroom, often surprised many. Society at the time could not accept that a woman with an elegant appearance possessed such strong sensual demands. They called her greedy in love. However, if we analyze deeper into human psychology, we will see how cruel and narrow-minded that judgment was. Social prejudices always assume that when women reach a certain age or build a noble image, they must automatically turn off their physical needs. I assert that Patti LaBelle was the very person who shattered that unreasonable stereotype. When she confessed, "I have never been ashamed, because my body needs love as much as my voice needs to sing," it was a brilliant manifesto of life. She did not hide the fact that she yearned to be caressed, to be immersed in the intoxication of love, because to her intimacy is an elevation of art and an indispensable part to maintain the youthfulness of the soul. Looking back at Patti LaBelle's journey, older audiences will find an endless source of inspiration about never giving up the right to be loved. She taught us that age or social status is not a grave burying emotions. No matter who you are, you still have the right to desire and be immersed in passionate nights of romance. Patti's greatness lies not only in the soaring high notes on stage, but also in how she proudly embraced her feminine instincts. She is living proof that a woman can be both a respectable monument before the public and the most brilliant flame of romance behind closed doors. Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole, the beloved daughter of the great legend, Nat King Cole, was born with a silver spoon and carried the expectation of becoming an exemplary princess of black music royalty. She possessed an aristocratic beauty, a voice as smooth as velvet, and an unmistakable upper-class demeanor. However, behind the silk dresses was a rebellious life, endless parties, and fleeting, rapidly changing romances. Her admitting to dating 3 men in 1 week, or secret romances with white musicians under fake names in hotels, were often judged by the media as the downward slide of a spoiled young lady, someone addicted to strange sensations. From a psychological, analytical perspective, Natalie Cole's romantic rebellion was exactly a scream demanding freedom from the glass cage created by her father's oversized shadow. I believe that when the whole world forces you to live like a saint, to protect the family's honor, breaking taboo rules becomes the only way for you to feel you truly exist. Natalie did not use physical intimacy to destroy herself. She used it as a tool to explore her own boundaries. The act of not wearing undergarments on stage or having nights of intense passion was not vulgarity, but a yearning to shed all fake masks. She wanted to be loved for her own wild instincts, not for the noble Cole surname. For audiences who have experienced all the ups and downs of life, the image of Natalie Cole brings a sense of melancholy mixed with admiration. She spent her final years purifying her soul, but never uttered words of regret for her passionate younger days. True love is never wrong. Her final advice to her son is proof of the pride of a woman who dared to live to the fullest. Natalie's story reminds us that no moral yardstick can frame the human desire for freedom. She personally tore up the script that society had pre-written to direct a life that might have many scratches, but was definitely a life worth living. Etta James. Etta James, the soul of immortal blues and R&B, tracks like At Last, or I'd Rather Go Blind, always delivered performances that seemed to drain her very core. She sang as if she were screaming, clawing at the listener's heart. Her personal life was also as wild and stormy as that singing voice. Fleeting romances with older men since she was 16, intoxicated nights with musicians in hotel bathrooms, or borrowing inspiration from passionate love affairs to record caused public opinion to label her an incurable addict to romance. However, through the lens of behavioral psychology analysis, we must look straight at the bleeding wounds in Etta's soul. Growing up without a father and with an addicted mother, Etta James carried within her an incredibly deep, abandoned child trauma. I believe that her rushing into unfamiliar arms, yearning for physical touch, was not promiscuity or deterioration, but a desperate effort to seek the safety and love she never received as a child. When she wrote, "I need to know if my body is worthy of being loved," that was the heart-wrenching cry of a woman who always felt worthless. She used intimacy as a painkiller, a way to fill the vast emptiness in her fractured soul. With our middle-aged audience, Etta James's story brings a highly poignant stillness. Before hastily judging someone as deteriorated, we need to understand the invisible pains they are bearing. Etta James turned personal tragedies, shattered romances, and long, lonely nights into immortal musical masterpieces. She was not addicted to intimacy, she was a soul yearning to be healed. Listening to Etta James, we not only hear the singing voice of a legend, but also hear the sobbing of a woman who spent the rest of her life searching for a true love that always slipped from her grasp. Millie Jackson. Millie Jackson never tried to force herself into the image of a traditional diva with gorgeous layers of dresses or cautious statements. She chose to tell stories using raw words, breathless sighs, and even the most instinctive growls. In the 70s, when women were still bound by fake, modest stereotypes, Millie releasing songs full of sensual sighs or monologues scolding terrible men was a true cultural shock. The conservative media at the time quickly labeled her a person obsessed with desire or a destroyer of fine customs, but to millions of women gritting their teeth, enduring cold marriages, she was the most powerful voice of liberation. From a sociological, analytical perspective, Millie Jackson's rebellion was a spear piercing through the hypocrisy of the entertainment industry. Why could male R&B singers comfortably boast about their romantic conquests on the radio, while a woman who dared to raise her voice about her own pleasure and physical needs was banned from the airwaves? I believe Millie was not addicted to intimacy. She was yearning for and addicted to the truth. Her including provocative conversations in her songs was not vulgarity, but a steely affirmation. Women also have the right to desire, the right to demand satisfaction, and the right to speak up about frustrations in the bedroom. She used art to strip away the masks of society. With our middle-aged audience, Millie Jackson's bluntness brings a priceless psychological release. She strongly declared, "I didn't come here to be a doll. I came to be a real woman." Her story is a costly lesson in valuing self-worth. In a world constantly trying to silence and strip away women's rights, Millie Jackson dared to live fully with every beat of her instinct. She proved that the greatest charm of a woman does not lie in fake coyness, but lies in the confidence to dare to demand what she deserves to receive. Betty Davis. If there is a name that made the entire music industry sweat because of an audacity ahead of its time, it is Betty Davis. Once the wife of the king of jazz, Miles Davis, Betty refused to cower in her husband's shadow. She wrote songs with lyrics so sensual they were raw, performed in outfits that challenged every gaze, and did not hesitate to expose the strongest physical desires. Her wildness made radio stations boycott her, record labels fear her, and society frown. People even rumored that her sexual ego was so large that a powerful man like Miles Davis could not control it, leading to a broken marriage after just 1 year. From the perspective of analyzing cultural shifts, Betty Davis was a time traveler decades ahead of her era. Her tragedy is the tragedy of a pioneer having to live in an overly backward world. I believe that society labeling her as overly driven by lust was a highly unjust assumption. Betty did not use intimacy to exchange for fame. She used art to express physical connection as the most natural ego of a human being. When she asked to turn off the lights in the recording studio, taking off her outer layers to sing by instinct, that was when she reached the highest state of artistic liberation. She refused to be turned into an obedient toy in the hands of men and the entertainment industry. Looking back at the stormy but highly proud career of Betty Davis, older audiences will recognize the ultimate bravery of a woman. She traded a brilliant career to protect her original ego. Betty's story teaches us a truth: freedom always has its price, and the price of absolute freedom is often isolation. But even though she was pushed to the margins of music history for a long time, Betty Davis's legacy still smolders. She is eloquent proof that it is better to be a rebellious and authentic entity than a pale copy that only knows how to bow before the empty standards of the world. Sylvia Robinson. Sylvia Robinson is recorded by history as the mother of hip-hop, the founder of the Sugar Hill Records empire, and the most powerful woman who brought this genre to the global masses. But before becoming a steely businesswoman, Sylvia was a bold soul artist who made all of America blush with the hit Pillow Talk in 1973. The song was filled with breathless sighs so authentic that it was banned by many radio stations. Rumors about her borrowing inspiration from passionate nights of romance with sports stars right in her office made Hollywood always look at her with wariness, labeling her promiscuous, even though she was a genius business mind. Analyzing this figure deeply, we will see the hypocrisy and double standards of the entertainment industry. If a male recording mogul had fleeting romances, he would be called a stylish player. But when Sylvia, a black woman, personally produced and recorded her own sounds of pleasure and turned them into a million-selling record, society felt threatened. I believe Sylvia's greatness lies in the fact that she commercialized intimacy not by degrading herself, but by holding absolute control. She was not a showgirl singing for men to gaze at. She was the boss of the game. Her romantic freedom went hand in hand with her financial freedom. Looking back at Sylvia Robinson's legacy, older audiences will have to take their hats off in admiration of her ahead-of-its-time mindset. The photo she kept by her bedside in her final years was not an image of a hip-hop empire, but a memory of pillow talk the moment she brought the voice of women's liberation into the recording studio. Sylvia's story is eloquent proof of the power of the modern woman. Never let anyone use gender prejudice to hinder your progress. She built a great music empire based on the heartbeat and also the beat of instinct, proving that seduction and business intellect can go hand in hand in the most brilliant way. LaVern Baker, the pioneering voice of the 50s R&B and rock and roll era, was feared by her peers and nicknamed the Tiger in the Velvet Dress. In an era where black women were expected to be gentle, patient, and submissive, LaVern chose to present herself with an overpowering energy. Her provocative gaze, half-smile, and the way she mastered every romance, from casting aside strict standards to bring young lovers to her room, to the deeply satisfied laughs after nights of intimacy, turned her into a ticking time bomb in the eyes of conservatives. They considered her confidence a threat to the patriarchal moral order. Analyzing how LaVern Baker lived and loved, we clearly see a powerful rise of primal feminism. She asked for no one's permission to be seductive, and she also didn't care about pretending to be weak to please a man's ego. I assess that her being rumored as addicted to intimacy was actually the panic of a society not yet ready to embrace women who dared to demand equality in the bedroom. When a woman confidently declares, "I didn't teach him to sing, I taught him how to moan," that is when she seized absolute initiative. She overturned traditional roles, turning herself into a proud hunter instead of a passive prey. For audiences who have been through many ups and downs, LaVern Baker's wildness is a wonderful reminder of self-respect. Her story teaches us that true seduction does not come from coyness or concession, but from the confidence radiating from deep within. LaVern Baker lived a life with no room for regret, daring to love, daring to demand, and daring to cast off taboo barriers. She proved that women absolutely have the right to master their own bodies and emotions. Her intensity will forever be a guiding torch for later generations of women who dare to stand up and demand fairness, even in their most secret yearnings. Jean Knight never needed daringly cut outfits to attract the eye. She stepped onto the stage with the demeanor of a true queen, cold eyes, and a voice that could split the arrogance of men in half. The illustrious hit, Mr. Big Stuff, was not simply a song. It was a direct slap in the face to the wandering ways and arrogance of men who always considered women as prizes. However, Jean Knight's own romantic life was a spiral of endless long nights, where she turned herself into the hunter, bringing male dancers back to her room and mastering every moment of joy. Her being banned by theaters for overly sensual acting or changing lyrics into bold words was often labeled as being obsessed with lust. However analyzed from a feminist perspective, Jean Knight's behavior was a historic role reversal. For centuries, men gave themselves the right to consider women as passing playthings for entertainment. So why, when a powerful woman did the same thing, did society panic? I assess that Jean Knight was not addicted to intimacy. She was enjoying the power of choice. She refused to play the role of a submissive woman sitting in the corner of the kitchen waiting for love. She demanded satisfaction and was not afraid to discard men who could not meet her expectations. Her resistance was a steely message: women also have the right to be selfish in love. With our middle-aged audience, Jean Knight's story brings an incredibly powerful surge of vitality. She lived a life with no room for submission. When she declared, "I don't need a theater, I just need a brightly lit room and a man not afraid of women. That was when she reached the peak of confidence. Jean Knight taught us a lesson in self-respect. A woman's value does not lie in how many men pursue her, but lies in whether she dares to master her own game. Her arrogance was actually a torch, lighting up gender equality in the bedroom. Barbara Mason. Barbara Mason was not the type of singer to scream on stage or dress revealingly to attract attention. Her seduction came from stillness, dewy eyes, and caressing whispers as if stroking the listener's hearing. The hit, "Yes, I'm Ready," shaped a soul style that was highly sensual yet incredibly elegant. However, her secret romantic life was a major shock. Her deep relationship with a church organist, a married man, and secret dates in suburban motels pushed her into the eye of a public opinion storm. Radio stations banning her song because they considered it too provocative only strengthened the prejudice about a female artist with a corrupted lifestyle. Through the lens of psychological analysis, Barbara Mason's resistance carried an incredibly feminine beauty but was as sharp as a knife. Her illicit love with a man belonging to the church reflected a fierce conflict between the rigid dogma of religion and the natural, sensual yearnings of humans. I assess that Barbara's sighs in the recording studio under candlelight and the scent of perfume were not play acting, but the transformation of the pain of a dead-end romance into art. When she declared, "I would rather they think I am sighing in passion than let them think I am silent," it was a declaration of war against the rules that suppressed a woman's emotions. For audiences who have weathered many of life's storms, Barbara Mason's story touches the most vulnerable corners of the soul. She spoke for millions of women who had to live in suppression, not daring to face their own secret desires. This story teaches us that honesty sometimes has to be paid for with a reputation, but it brings absolute liberation to the soul. Barbara Mason did not just write love songs. She rewrote the way a woman is allowed to yearn and allowed to love, even if it went against the entire world. Marlena Shaw. Marlena Shaw, the jazz and soul vocalist, with an elegant demeanor, always hid herself behind a measured smile and eyes harboring many thoughts. She was never noisy about her private life, having no scandals in the tabloids, but in artist circles, everyone knew she carried a silent and deadly magnetic pull. Long nights, leaving the stage with musicians, solitary moments in the dressing room, and unnamed romances created a veil of smoke around her life. People rumored that she was too cold or too picky, but the diary left behind after she passed away exposed a heartbreaking truth. The wildness in her music was actually a cover for a desperately yearning need to be touched and understood. Analyzing Marlena Shaw deeply, we touch the core essence of the concept of physical desire in art. Intimacy in many cases is not an explosion of instinct, but a cry for help from loneliness. I believe that when Marlena wrote, "I once loved someone so much that just their touch on the back of my hand could make me sing a whole song without music," she completely redefined pleasure. Physical touch to her was not a passing game, but a confirmation of existence, the only medicine that could soothe the coldness of having to stand alone at the peak of fame. The sighs in her songs were precisely tears flowing inward. With our middle-aged audience, the story closing, this list brings a highly poignant low note. Marlena Shaw represents women who hide their pain inside every musical note. Her story reminds us of a profound truth. Behind the most intense physical desires is sometimes just a small soul desperately seeking a shoulder to lean on. Marlena's music will forever be a refuge for lonely hearts, reminding the world that to be loved, to be touched, and to be understood is the most sacred right of a human being. Ladies and gentlemen, the 15 stories we just explored are not only hidden private corners, but also profound lessons about the desire for freedom and the right to live true to the ego of music legends. We hope the video has brought you truly valuable moments of reflection. We wish you always have peaceful, joyful, and warm times with your family. If you love this content, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Respectful greetings and see you again.